I just thought it would be cool to start the stream like completely off camera. So after that countdown, that like something incredible is going to happen. Nothing at all happens.
I wasn't expecting that, so I was just standing there like, okay.
I don't know what to do now. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the weekly VS Code live stream. You got two hosts this week. What's up, Reynold?
What is up, Burke? Yeah, we decided we're gonna try to double up here, try something new here. How's your week so far?
What day is it? Oh, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I don't know why, but we're starting off with a little Rick Astley this morning in the chat. We're just gonna go straight to the Rick roll. Appreciate that. Thank you, Sangita. Yeah. Now, unpopular opinion, or maybe popular opinion, but that's a good song, and I listened to it just on my own, of my own volition. I will go to YouTube and watch that video. Does anybody else do that? Just because you like
the song?
The Never Gonna Give You Up, Rick Astley.
Oh, that one, the one that was kind of like a meme. Is that still happening?
Yeah. You get Rick rolled.
I could never get enough of the 80s, so I've always liked that meme.
Yeah, me too. I love 80s music. Huge fan. Well, what's up, chat? What is up? Roberto's here. Henry's here. Con is here. What's up?
People from the chat, what are your favorite songs from the 80s? I want to see what's the first song that comes up.
Or just artist. I got the comments. What is this? It's like you can't post comments to some places. Learn more.
Yeah, I'm not surprised Michael Jackson's coming up. I was waiting for someone to be like, I wasn't born in the 80s.
Carlos is like, jump to the release notes. Stop wasting time. Carlos, we know, but we have to wait for folks to get here because it takes just a minute. Everybody's always fashionably late. Look, Carlos, what should we do in the meantime? Yeah, Rick A is good stuff. That's what I'm saying. It's a good track.
Carlos is like, I've got places to go and things to do. Let's do this.
What is your favorite 80s vaporware VS Code theme? I don't know what that means. Henry, what does that mean? Are you talking about the synthwave? Is everybody talking about synthwave? I have no idea.
Sure, but Mama says hello to both of us. Hello.
What is going on?
You say hi, Raina and Burke. I've never had my name abbreviated like that. Raina. I've heard Ray. Raina.
Close enough.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I get called Bert a lot. I get Bert all the time. B-E-R-T. Especially at Starbucks. They seem to mess that one up. I feel like that's part of their training manual, right? Like at Starbucks, when you learn, they're kind of like, okay, part of your job here is to just mess someone's name up. And here's how you do that. Here's some ways.
Either that or be like super accurate with it, as if they had like 1 week of boot camp just focusing on names. It's amazing like how some people could really creatively mess up names. Because like I can understand someone saying Ronald if you take a quick glance at my name, but I don't know like where they start getting like Reginald from. I'm like, slow down.
There's no G in there.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, y'all. We do have a release party for y'all today, and we have an AKA. What is this? Top secret VS Code features. Producer put this up. I don't know. I don't even know what this is. I don't know where this link goes. Anybody? You have to try it out and tell us where it goes. I don't know where it goes. Could go anywhere. It probably goes to. I know where it goes. I'm not going to say. So we have we missed a release party. Is what happened last month. Reynolds. Why did we miss a release party? Let everybody know.
I wish I knew, but I just joined last month, so I can't take the blame for that one.
I know. So, chat, I don't know if y'all remember Alessandro. He was never on the stream. He was always in the background, right? So if you ever saw replies from VS Code, that was Alessandro. And he was the marketing. He did marketing for VS Code, and he also set up the live streams and everything. Anyway, he got a job as a software engineer on Dapper. Anybody here using Dapper chat? It's also a Microsoft thing. And so we were without a marketing person there for a little bit and like trying to transition, and we just dropped the ball in the transition between Alessandro and no Alessandro. So
all right, it's sounding like Alessandro has to take the blame, so we'll do the crack whip on him there.
Right. Oh yeah, we have sound. Well, Reynolds has sound effects. So, all right, I think we've sufficiently killed enough time here for everybody to come in. We're 5 minutes in. Look, if you're later than 5 minutes, that's on you. We got to go. We got a great release party for you today. Reynolds, do you have the notes up for our release party? It just occurred to me, I don't have them up on my screen.
Yeah, I do. We have Jackson coming up. We have a few people coming up here for the release party. We have Jackson that's going to be covering file nesting, Sana, local history, and then Connor with Heap files.
Sounds like exciting stuff. So who is 1.66, y'all? So who are we bringing up to the stream first here, Reynolds?
Jackson. So let's bring up Jackson, everyone. Give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm Jackson. I'm a software development engineer on VS Code. I've been working on the Explorer lately, in particular file nesting. So I'll go ahead and share what that looks like. Share. Maybe. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I have, this is just a sample repo here that has some Explorer nesting samples. You can also go to aka.ms/vscode nesting. And that should take you to the exact same place. So, yeah, so this is a feature that first came out last iteration. And I'll kind of just dive right into what we have going on here. So it's still in experimental phase just because kind of just still working through some ideas about how we want to configure it, but it is stable. Like we have this enabled in the VS Code repo and people tend to be happy with it. So let's see. So I've just enabled Explorer file nesting enabled. And now you'll see that for particular files, they've been collapsed into sort of, we take any derived file like tsconfig.json is sort of related to base.json, test.json, package.json, obviously block emanates from that. You have your TSX files that generate these files. So this is just what you get with the base configuration here. These are the defaults. It's sort of a bit of a new format that we're using for configuring these nestings. I hope it makes some sense. It's quite powerful, but it does take a little bit of getting used to, and this is actually the main reason that we haven't fully made this setting like non-experimental yet, just because we aren't quite sure if we want to maybe mess with this configuration here. I'll just cut to the chase. So this can be changed at either a workspace level or the user level, and then new with this iteration, you can actually change it per folder. So if you have like a multi-root workspace, you can have different nesting patterns for each folder, but I won't get into that right now.
Jackson, I have a question.
Yeah.
How did how was this feature born? Like what led up to it? Were some people asking for it? Did you guys come up with it?
Yeah, so a lot of different people were asking for it. There are a lot of cases where you have files like this where you have your TS file and then that generates your d.ts and that generates your .js. So you can have cases where, maybe I can show real quick. I don't have my insiders up at the moment. But yeah, so we had a lot of people asking for it, and then other products like Visual Studio, they have support for this sort of thing. So if your file system was already laid out so that Visual Studio would nest it, it's nice for VS Code to be able to nest it as well. And some people have gone around this by, maybe configure file.excludes to exclude all JS files if you have a TS file. But that can be a bit annoying sometimes when you actually want to look at your .js file for whatever reason. If it's hidden or if it's in like a completely different like build folder, it can just take a while to get to versus, just expanding it and clicking there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Jackson, could you bump up the font size there? Maybe a couple of ticks. There we go. Perfect.
Yeah, and then so some new things that we've added this iteration. One thing that people are asking for is people have setups like this where they have like my component and then they have a my component file and an index file. And what we can do now, so if we want this all to nest under the index.ts, we can actually use the dir name as a capturing group. And then we can just, for instance, say anything that starts with that dir name will get nested. So now we can see that that's all nested there. And if we were to have like some dir.ts, that wouldn't be nested. Yeah, there, other file. Yeah, and then let's see, some other sort of interesting things you can do here. Like, so we have, by default, we say tsconfig.json will nest and everything tsconfig with anything in between it. So that's what we see here. But you could do the same for actually any file at all if you just say match all files and then look at their not that one. So you'll see that just with that sort of general expansion format, we can nest anything. And in this case, we actually wouldn't need this tsconfig.base anymore. So that's sort of a powerful feature. And then sort of somewhere on the same page, this is a bit more of an esoteric example, but you do see cases where people just like keep on appending things. So we can actually edit this and just say capture, which is whatever the star consumed. So if it consumes detail, then that would just be detail, and then dot star, so that's anything. And now we collapse things like that. So yeah, these are just some new features that we have with nesting. There's a couple other changes like operating as a group. So if I go ahead and copy this, it'll actually copy both of them. This one is also something that we're still sort of figuring out exactly how we want to do that. So that's another experimental one. Yeah.
That's very cool. Jackson, I remember back in the day writing TypeScript, and what we would do with the JavaScript files instead is create that glob pattern in a settings file for like exclude files, basically to hide the JavaScript because you don't want to see the output. So this is really nice, right? Because then you'd forget that you were doing that. Like, where's all the JavaScript at? Oh yeah, I just hid it from the editor. So now we can collapse it, which is great.
Yeah, and here's an example I have of, these are all the actions that we have to triage issues in the VS Code repo. And just for purposes of making build times faster or making execution times faster, we actually track all the JS files in addition to the TS files. So it's nice to be able to just quickly say, oh, what's the actual state of this JS file right now? Is it being tracked appropriately without it ever cluttering up your working directory? And so the way I have this configured is actually, if we go here, we set expand to false. So I've kind of said for this directory, all the nestings, I don't want them to expand. Like I know that they're there, I can see them. And if I want to click into them, I will. So yeah. And previously we had been hiding all the JS files, but there are a lot of times where like there's some sort of discrepancy between the JS and the TS. Maybe I didn't run the build. Maybe I've done something weird. I've forgotten something. So it's really nice to be able to just quickly say, oh, wait, okay, yeah, this is in the correct state.
Nice. Quick question from the chat. Alex asked, is it concats files or of just a visual feature? It is concats files of just a visual feature?
Yeah, it's just a visual feature. It's pretty much configures Yeah, it's only how the Explorer renders the children, and also a bit of how sort of file operations work. So like copy and paste and delete. But it doesn't change the files on disk at all, or it doesn't change your actual directory structure on disk at all. It's only like a VS Code rendering and VS Code actions.
So here's a question. Julio's asking, why not use folders? I guess you could.
Yeah.
Folder called config and throw it all in there.
Yeah, so you could use folders. I mean, like for I don't know. They're kind of different from folders, right? So if you wanted to have, like, I guess I'll pull up insiders again. So here, like you might have a lot of these files here. So like if you were to have a different folder for every top level item, it would end up just being a lot more clicking through. So right now I'm only ever really interacting with the folders that have the real content that I don't want to access. I wouldn't need to like go and open validator or like open a build folder in here. It sort of just keeps everything a bit more, like it reduces the amount of layering that you need to access in the general case. So like in VS Code core, we do have like a separate folder that just build, and that has all of your build TS files. But if you want to go and access a built TS file, you kind of need to go through and dive through the entire directory structure rather than having it just right here to access. So that's kind of basically just reducing the number of clicking is kind of what nesting gets you as opposed to folders. But folders would be more compatible with other software.
So by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, he launched Insiders. Drop one in the chat if you haven't heard of Insiders. It's actually the version of Visual Studio Code that has the very latest, if you ever want to get to see what's the newest release that's out, that's about to be out. So you'll get a glance at it first. You get the inside peek.
And also on that same note, if you go to insiders.vscode.dev, you get the web version of Insiders, in case you didn't know. Jackson, file nesting. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. That was awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Very
cool. We have sound effects now. All right, real quick. Thank you, Jackson. Y'all can take Jackson off so he can get back to doing what Jackson does. Have a great day, man. All right, so TJ's asking, you noob here, can anyone in chat let me know what VS Code does better than other software and if it's meant for... This is such a great question. We get this question all the time. It's such a valid question. And I just want to put up this response from Alex because I thought it was really good. VS Code can be used for any language. It is a powerful text editor with rich extensions. You can use it for code editing or also building code and running it like an IDE. That's like the best concise description of VS Code I think I've ever seen. Good job, Alex. Outstanding. All right, what are we doing next, Reynold? What's coming up next?
Coming up next, by the way, did you already have that? Was that answer from today, or you already have that in your back pocket for whenever anyone asks?
No, that was, yeah, Alex. You've been working on that? I mean, that was like a man wordsmithed. Such a great answer. All right.
Coming up next is Sana. She's going to be chatting about local history.
All right. Hey, everyone. Good to be on the stream presenting something this time.
Everyone's excited.
Cool. So I'm going to talk about local history. And this has actually been a very popular feature request. This is something that is found in often other editors or other IDEs. And it's really meant for the use case of if you are not using version control or something like Git, or maybe you are using Git, but you just want to have some kind of state of your file, keep track of all the changes made to your file before you commit something. So it's really meant for that kind of use case. So I can share my screen and kind of show you what the different features for the local history are.
Okay.
Is my screen being cool?
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
All right.
Like the word.
So this, yeah, you can see this has been a very popular old feature request, and we finally got it in, and it's really awesome. And we're excited to keep making more progress on it. So if you go to your VS Code and make sure you go to your settings and ensure that local history is enabled and set to true. And then if you go over to this timeline view, you can now see this like local history. And if you click here, this is like a filter. So this timeline actually shows you both your Git history and your local history. But if you want, you can just filter it to your local history, for instance, because there is a separate source control tab that's also keeping track of your commits. So I like to have my version control commits in this section, and then have just local history in the timeline section. So if you make sure this is turned on, and even if as you start to just make changes to this to your file, so say we add a new a route here, I'm making this change. Let's just call it hello. And then and code, there we go. So so I made this change. I'm gonna save this file, and then you can see now I added this. I'm not going to commit this yet because I'm not done working on it, but I see this local history it recorded that I saved this file. And so for instance, I can go back to what I was 17 minutes ago and easily see the difference. Let's see what is happening. All right, maybe let's try another change. So I can change this and rename this to something and now I can save this again and easily see, now that I renamed a symbol, for instance, and use that refactoring, the local history actually records that as a separate action that was done. So it showed me that I renamed a variable in this case. So if I compare, all right, I don't know why it's not being able to open. This is some error. Live demos. Here we go.
Live demos. What are you gonna do?
But if you click on this, you can actually see a diff or compare with the previous version of this. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why this is not working.
It's because the gods know that you are live. They've stepped in.
But it's basically, if you click on this, you would get a diff view of what the change you made was. And so it's kind of a good way to keep track of your progress. This also works for other things. So for instance, if I were to make a change, a global replace. So let's find the file and replace this in, replace all, and then go into this file. Now you can see that the timeline for this file recorded this search and replace as a separate action. So it's really great for adding new entries and keeping track of what change you're specifically doing before you make a commit. So hopefully this helps you make smarter commits, keeps track of your work. For instance, if you were to accidentally quit VS Code or quit the editor, you can go back to it and see the same local history saved for your file. And this also works if you are on a local VS Code or VS Code in the web, as well as if you have your local file systems you're connecting to, or a remote that you're connecting to. So this also works and maintains local history for any remote files that you are accessing.
Very cool. Question here from Suvek. It would be great if it had a workspace history. What is...
Yeah, and I think that is also something that the team is working on. So if you go over to the GitHub repo and search for anything that's labeled timeline, you can see all the different feature requests that are coming on top of this. And so I think having this for a workspace is an issue on here, and it's on board that the team is working on. Another thing I wanted to show real quick was a couple other settings related to this.
Wait, one quick question. I actually like this. Not I actually like this question. I like all questions, but I do like this one a lot. By Mr. Pahides, he asks, at Visual Studio Code, can you restore from history?
Yeah, you can restore from history. So there's a command called find entry to restore. And even if you go back to any one of these, you can right click and restore contents. So yeah, for instance, I restored content and it took out that hello world route that we had just outed. So you can restore contents. You can also do that from a command. So say I delete, if I delete one of these entries, I can also go back into the command and find entry to restore. And this will show me all the different files I have local history stored for. So then I can pick between different entries to pick to choose from.
Nice.
So I can restore even from a deleted entry. And a couple more settings I wanted to show. So if you want to, you can decide. So for instance, I have autosave turned on right in my settings, but I don't want to have an entry for every time like it autosaves every 2 seconds. So you can have something called a merge window. So if I turn the setting on, basically it will only you will only have distinct entries in the timeline when you wait more than 10 seconds between saves. So it's a better way to clean and keep track of the file save entries in your history. And then you can also limit this to if you don't want to have this turned on for larger files, you can keep a max file size as well as a max file entry list. So this is how many actual entries the local history will keep track of. So in this case, it's 50.
Cool.
That is a very cool feature. And also, do you have to be using GitHub to do this?
No. So yeah, this is the best part. This is basically, if you're not using version control, or maybe you don't Git is too complicated for what you're doing, or you just don't have a need for it, this is still a great way to keep track of your changes and provide you some kind of history without using version control like Git.
Very nice. Very cool. All right, chat. Thank you, Sana. Let's go ahead. Actually, Sana, before you leave, let me throw up a question that you absolutely do not want to answer, or a comment that you probably do not at all want to respond to, because that's what we do here on the stream. We try to make it as awkward as possible. So let's see. What do we have here? Hold on. How about this one? Anyone ready to switch from Vim yet? Let's just throw it. Just go ahead, chat. Let's just get it going in the chat. It's all good. Listen, you should use whatever editor you're the most comfortable with and makes you feel the most productive. All right. Thank you, Sana. We appreciate it. Everybody, chat. Well, actually, Sana, let me ask you one more, because this is a good question. This is an actual solid question from Steven. Where does the local history get stored? How do you do that?
Yeah, so it gets stored in your user data directory, which is the same place other parts of your VS Code is stored, your extensions, your UI state. So it's stored on your local file system. And if you're using this in VS Code Web, then it's stored in the browser. If you're using this with the remote file system, or connecting to a VM or something, the local history is then saved in the remote file system.
Very nice. All right, chat. That is your rundown on what's this feature called again, Sana?
Local history.
Local history. There it is. All right.
All right.
Outstanding. Thank you,
Thanks
Sana.
so much for that. Local history, folks.
What other sound effects do you have besides clapping and cheering?
I'll have this one right here.
Yeah, baby.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers, a call back there.
That's pretty good.
I
All
just have
right.
to do it now.
All right. Where are we going next?
Coming up now is Connor with Heap Profiles.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Connor. I work on the VS Code team, and one of the things I work on is the JavaScript debugger. So let's see, about a year ago, we actually added the ability to take performance profiles using the debugger, so you can profile your program, see what's fast, what's slow. And in this iteration, we actually added the ability to heap profiles. And so previously, you could take a CPU profile, which is where your CPU time is being taken. And you can also take a heap snapshot, which shows you kind of where memory is being retained in your program. But now you can also actually use the heap profiler to see where memory is allocated. So if you have a function that's creating lots of DOM nodes or something, you could see it really easily and then see how much memory is being allocated or used with that. So I can do a quick demo here if I share my screen. I think I'm already sharing, so you should be able to add it on there.
Let's find the screen. There it is. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, so here I'm actually in the VS Code repo. So the cool thing is that we use VS Code to build and debug VS Code itself. So I can go over here and launch a new VS Code instance under the debugger. And while I'm building VS Code here, you can also use this for like web apps or any Node.js app that you have, because it's all just JavaScript at the end of the day.
Hey, Connor, can you bump that font size up? You knew that was coming.
Sure. So there you go. That's and I'm not going to be doing much over here anyway. But
okay, all right.
yeah. So to actually take a profile, there's two ways to get into it. You can hover over the call stack view here, so you see this little record button here, or you can just go to the command palette and do take performance profile as the command right there. And this will only appear when you're actually debugging. So if I go ahead and do that, it will ask me what kind of profile I want to take. In this case, the new Heap profile is right there at the top. So I can do that, and then I can ask, or then asks me like how long I want to like take it. So I'll just take it until I stop it. And so now you see that we have this little record button right here. And so if I do some stuff on the screen, maybe I open some editors, like create a terminal or something, and then I can stop the profile by clicking this record button right there. And then it opens the results of this. So by default, we'll open this table view, but what I prefer is actually looking at the flame graph view here. So like you might have seen this flame graph in our previous releases, or if you use CPU profiling. The difference here is that where the CPU profile has this as like a chronological view where it goes from like 0 seconds to 30 seconds. When you're looking at memory, this actually is your scale of how much memory was allocated. So you can see here, total we allocated about 5.5 megabytes worth of memory, and then each like node in the flame graph shows like how much a memory was allocated there or in its children. So for example, if I look at the, let's see, like the open editor function here, we can see that it didn't allocate any memory itself, but the function it called allocated about half a megabyte or so. And then you can like go down in here, you can see all your things in the call stack. If you click on nodes in the call stack, it'll show, well, they'll show the call stack there, as well as links to each file in there. So, so for example, like we can see that, let's see, yeah, we can see that like this, like a create function allocated like 33 kilobytes, and we can jump to that location in our first code by clicking the little file icon here. And then you can also see that similar to the CPU profile, this also shows just in line with a little hint here how much memory was allocated in this function. And so you can see that in this case, again, it allocated about half a megabyte itself, and then this in functions it called allocated about a full megabyte. And then, yeah, so that's mostly how it works. So you can scroll around here. You can also filter for different things, just like you can if you use the CPU profile version of this. And yeah, so that's how it works.
All right, so I've got a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
The first one is this just for extension authors? Because it looks like you're doing this on an extension. Is that correct?
No, so I'm actually doing this on VS Code, which is an Electron app, but this same
Oh,
process
so you're
works
actually
for,
running this on the VS Code app itself.
yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, but this works for like any Node.js program, any browser debugging, a Chrome, Edge, Node.js, WebView2, anything we support with the JS debugger supports heap profiling. So
Okay. All right. So that's interesting. I didn't realize we were actually using VS Code to look at the heap on VS Code.
Yep, exactly.
And then the flame chart, because I don't know what flame charts are, this doesn't mean anything to me, but like, how do I read this? Is it the longer ones are the more memory? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, so in this case, the like width of each bar is based on like how much memory it allocates. So in this case, the open editor is about like half a megabyte or so. So it takes like half a megabyte worth of.
So are we reading left to right or top to bottom?
So it's kind of both. So yeah, so for example, like this function allocated about half a megabyte, whereas like the set input right here is about a whole megabyte. So this is like wider than the open editor function. so the like horizontal size indicates like how much memory was allocated there, whereas vertically it shows you the call stack. So essentially, if I click on like this thing, like everything like leading up to like this point are functions inside of this call stack.
Okay, is that why it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes up?
Yeah, because the like top level functions are the ones like that are called at the start of the call stack, and then they call like down into other functions, and that's why it's like decreasing because, for example, like deliver is calling invoke, which is calling the last function, which is calling fire, which is calling deliver again, and so on and so forth. So it's basically calling down the call stack, and then at each level, it might call multiple functions, as you can see here, like invoke called these 3 anonymous functions, and then they each call their own functions, and so on and so forth.
Okay, and then yeah, go ahead, Reynold.
All right, so couple of things. One, there's a comment by Ayomid Ayudeli Soibo. I think I butchered that nicely, but they mentioned, I do not understand a single thing here. So here's my question that might shed some light related to that comment.
Mm-hmm.
What situation would occur that would lead me to say, you know what, this is a good time to look into heap profiles? What conflict what I might run into that might make me want to jump into this?
Yeah, so a common case like would be if you're noticing that your like website or your app is like using lots of memory, and you want to find out like where that memory is being allocated, or if it's just running slow. Often running slow is actually a result of like allocating a lot of memory. So
like a memory leak.
Yeah. So so for a memory leak, you'd more likely want the heat snapshot because the heat snapshot shows you like how memory is being retained. So if you have like an object that's referencing another object, which is referencing another object, that would show you that. Whereas this actually shows you like where new memory is being pulled from your RAM, kind of, or being like borrowed from your RAM. And so like this is good if generally for if you want to like optimize your program, if you want to like make your like program or your app like run faster or use less memory, like you can use this. You have to say, oh, it looks like, for example, in this function I'm creating less memory, or in this other function it's just like being like really memory intense. So maybe it's something that I can optimize, and then you can optimize it, and then you can use this to then kind of like validate that your changes that you made actually like were effective and improving the performance of your program.
Okay, so if you have like a large application that you're working on and you're noticing performance issues, and it seems like your code seems to be well written, and some obvious issues that usually causes performance issues is not causing any problems, then you might want to dive into something like this to look a little bit deeper that might be causing performance issues. Is that right?
Yeah, just about. So you have both the Heap profile as well as the CPU profile here, and both are tools that you can use depending on kind of like where you think that, or like where you've like observed that your program is kind of being slow. Is it being slow because it's like using a lot of CPU time, or is it being slow because like it's creating lots of memory, and then maybe there's like a lot of like garbage collection things going on, and then this can help you get rid of those or optimize those away.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a great description, Connor, and I'm learning a lot myself. I'm going to throw this comment back up just one more time, only because I really appreciate. Thank you for this comment. The reason why I really appreciate this is because I feel the same way, and I promise that a lot of people in chat do too. And so I think it's great that you dropped that in there because we're all learning. So Connor, as I understand it on the performance stuff, performance is one of those things where in Chrome, I feel the same way in the dev tools, right? It's kind of like, I feel like every developer is expected to know how to do performance analysis, and yet we don't, right? It's one of those things where it feels like a discipline for being a developer that you have to dive into, right? And it's kind of a specialty. do you agree with that statement, or what do you think?
I mean, I think it is a specialty. Like, there's always more levels of things that you can like learn and find out. Like, this is kind of a very high level thing as far as performance goes. Like you can dive way deeper. Like, you can like profile the like engine itself, like the JavaScript engine itself, and like you can go all the way down there. But I feel like it's eventually useful for most developers to like learn kind of like the basics of profiling, because eventually like you're going to have a program that runs slow. You're going to have a program where like your boss says, oh, like this is really slow, and or something, and or like the customer wants you to like make this thing faster. So eventually like you're going to want to learn like some basics around like how to like do profiles and like how to interpret those results. But yeah,
how did you do it?
So
Connor, how did you learn? Did you just do it?
I think so. Actually, yeah. It's been a while. I think I probably actually started by just using the like profiling tools inside of the Chrome Dev Tools when I was like building websites, because I started out programming by like building websites. And like back when I started, the tools were like much less advanced and much less easy to use than they are today. But yeah, so for example, if you have the Chrome Dev Tools open, there's the performance, or I think profile tab in there, which actually has something kind of similar to the flame graph, where like they can do profiling of like all your DOM nodes and everything like that. And like those are actually like I feel like those are actually probably a bit easier to interpret than just like looking at in memory, because they give you kind of combined view. But like those are only for browsers really right now. So if you have other programs, you probably want to use these tools. And then of course, if you're already debugging your programs with VS Code, then these tools are just the way for you. So
a quick question. I've once had a project where my main role was to performance test. Is this like something that a performance tester might use in their arsenal? And also, or is it just for debugging, as Alex just asked?
So it's actually so it definitely is useful for performance testing. Right now, it's actually built into the debugger, just because like in JavaScript and in V8, we talk to kind of the profiler tool just through the debug protocol. So it's kind of a natural extension to debugging.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you have like any Node.js program, any website, you can just like fire it up inside the VS Code debugger, and then start a profile.
Good question here from Dream On. Great name as well. Can we use VS Code for embedded platform development and get this memory usage graph while debugging a target board? This is a great question, because this is like the first thing that you run into when doing embedded development and cross-compiling.
Yeah, so the cool thing about VS Code is that VS Code itself is very slim, and like these are actually all inside of extensions. And so this like profiling functionality is actually in the built-in a JavaScript extension. So for other languages, like if you're, I guess, probably working with like C++ or something, then like they would have to kind of like have their own profiler, and they certainly could like emit output that we can open inside of the flame graph view here. But as far as actually like having the instrumentation, that's something that whatever extension that you're using for doing your embedded development would have to implement.
Very nice. All right. Cool. Anything else, Connor? Oh, by the way, fun facts about Connor that I learned yesterday. Connor used to work on the Xbox team. And is that right? Did I have that right?
Yes, I worked on Mixer, which was the Xbox's Twitch compete.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I was going to ask you, like, did you build Halo or something? Like, what did you do?
No, sadly.
What does Master Chief look like? Connor, tell us. All
Well,
right.
there's a statue of him in the like visitor center at Microsoft. So if you ever come to Microsoft, you can see a statue of Master Chief.
That is true. Yeah.
It's like 8 feet tall. It's huge. All
right, chat. Give Connor a big thanks for that. Thank you, Connor. Appreciate that, and appreciate you sharing your knowledge about performance testing for this. Round of applause. All right, folks. I think that's it. Reynold, what do we have? Oh, you know what we have? We've got a couple of things. First of all, put that meetup link back up. I like to put this meetup link not just because I want people to join the meetup group, but also to point out that for 30 weeks in a row, we have not shortened this URL. And this week is no exception. So just go ahead and type that whole. I bet no one, of all the times you put this up, I'm saying no one has ever gone to this link. Here's another.
I wonder if there is max size for URL. Like, what is the limit?
Yeah, we are approaching to where the browser's like, no, look, be reasonable. Okay, here's something else, y'all. Subscribe on YouTube and subscribe. Put that YouTube link up there, and I'll tell you why. We are going to start releasing our release. We're going to release our release highlights as a 60-second video. Olivia is bringing that to you every month. And so there's more in the release than what we went over here. And she's going to give you all the highlights in 60 seconds or less. So you're going to want to subscribe on YouTube. We'll drop that later today, so you'll know when that comes out. So you can figure out everything that's new in the release in less than 60 seconds, which is rad.
Don't forget to mention about the VS Code Day videos that are now on
YouTube. VS Code Day videos are now live. If you missed it, it was an interesting event this time around. We had Blink Shell. If you've ever heard, Blink was on here, but Blink Shell, Thunder Client was there. Awesome stuff. All right, man. Any last words from you? That was that phrasing was odd. I didn't mean that. That sounded really dark.
No. So yeah, no, this was good. This was like the first time we doubled up like this, so I liked how it went. I thought we did well. Also, you want to mention like what we were chatting about, how we were considering asking people what some features they would like to see in VS Code?
Yeah, so I think, coming up, Chad, what we're thinking about doing, and y'all can let us know, is just having the PMs on here who kind of help figure out what the features are, just letting y'all tell them directly what features you'd like to see in VS Code. So look for that coming up on your calendar. Maybe we'll try it out. We'll see how it goes. If it's a train wreck, well, we won't do it again. We'll have one train wreck. All right, folks, that's it. Thank you, Reynold.
All right, no problem. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.